Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Moonshot NFT Podcast, the first episode of 2023. Of course, happy Christmas, happy New Year to you all. Hope you had a wonderful time. I'm, of course, joined by my lovely co-host, Matt. Matt, how the devil are you?
Very well, thank you. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to everyone. Excited for the prospect of whatever 2023 holds for us all, especially in the world of NFTs. I think I'm so glad we do this on a regular basis. It makes me stay focused on NFTs. And there's so much going on all the time, even in the crappiest of crappy bear markets that we're in right now. But it's exciting. I think there's a lot to look forward to, and so I am very well. What about yourself?
Excellent. No, I am doing very well. Feeling refreshed, reinvigorated, and a little bit heavier after the festive period full of indulgences. But now ready to get back on track. And honestly, the back end of last year was rough from an NFT perspective. There's no hiding that. The markets, the global financial markets have been pretty much in turmoil. And that has only exacerbated what's been going on in NFT land. However, despite that, and the mainstream media and popularity perhaps moving away slightly, you are right. Lots of things have still been moving, lots of exciting trends have still been developing, and the future for NFTs looks as bright as it frankly ever has. And so I'm looking forward to exploring what 2023 has to offer with you today. And so we've got a lot to talk about today. This episode is all around, will NFTs recover in 2023? What does the future hold? We're going to attempt to discuss how we think this year is going to pan out. Will NFTs recover? The big question. If they do or if they don't, to what extent? What projects do we personally see that will do well? And perhaps most importantly at the end, what trends are we going to see in terms of NFTs, in terms of the market, in terms of things that might impact how this technology is evolving and being adopted? But before we dive into that, Matt, 2022 was a great year overall, despite some market pain. How would you summarize it in a couple of sentences?
Yeah, I think when I was looking back over what did happen in the NFT market in 2022, in preparation for this, really, in terms of one of the best places to look when trying to predict what's going to happen in the future is the past, right? So when I was looking back through what did happen in 2022, and this is a struggle for me because my memory is not great, and I was shocked to realize that actually the whole first half of 2022 was really good. Like, that was still such a strong time. Q2 in particular was when the NFT market reached an all-time high of $8.4 billion in sales in the second quarter of 2022. And that was a real sort of, wow, it feels like ages that it's been really bad and miserable and all a bit dull and gloomy on the whole market front. But actually, that's 6 months ago. It's so easy to be really negative, isn't it? And so, yeah, it was an all-time high back in Q2. Even in Q3, it dropped, of course, and it dropped to, 3.4 billion, which is, of course, very different to the 8.4 in the previous 3 months. But actually, $3.4 billion as a market in my real business, in the day job, one of the biggest part of our business is like a 100 to 150 million pound market, and that is a big deal for us. And it's like like looking back, thinking about the size, the scale, there's just the opportunities here for all of us. So let's stay focused on the whole reason we started this podcast. Is it's an NFT investment podcast, investment club, our Moonshot DAO. This is what we're focused on. And it dropped again in Q4, of course, and December, November. It's all very different from the first half of 2022. But actually, when you look at the scale of it all, it's still pretty fucking huge. And so I think, in summary, the year was, you've gone from an all-time high towards the end of the first half of the year to December 2022 was like 80% lower in sales volume than December 2021. So, two extremes. And of course, people will have their own feelings about that in relation to, did they buy at the right time and did they sell at the right time? Because those are the two things that are really going to impact on people's emotions, of course. And let's face it, everything is easier and when with hindsight. And of course, if you didn't get the timing right, then you're not alone, I'm sure. But yeah, I think just a crazy year. It was brilliant. It was fascinating. It was fun. And I think it's still stayed all those three things right through to the end, just in a very different way. And yeah, 2022, I don't think people talk about, has it hit the bottom, or are they dead, or NFTs dead, all the sort of headlines you read online and on Twitter in particular. I don't think for a minute that they are, but I can see why when it was right up at the tippy top that it got to, and then the level that it fell down to by the end of the year. Yeah, for sure. And the macro kind of scale, you can see why people talk that way, but still...
The classic market cycle of emotions, right? The hype and speculation and euphoria that fuels it on the way up, and then as it capitulates and crashes, you enter this period where all of a sudden the hope is lost, and the naysayers and the FUD and whole market sentiment turns very sour, and there's definitely a lot of that right now. It's why I think we've seen at the back end of last year, obviously, NFT trading volumes plummeted to very significant annual lows, miles off where they were in Q2 when they were hitting their highs. But again, I think this was just a natural market cycle. My 2 cents on it is that we just got in on the very early wave, which is, in hindsight, so similar to the early tech bubble, because all of these NFT projects were being launched where they were just literally bits of artwork promising roadmaps of games and communities and all of these things that didn't actually exist. People were just buying into them and betting on them because it was the hype at the moment. And as a result, not many of them had end products which could lead to the sustained value. And that's why when we had external influencing factors, be it market fluctuations, be it war, inflation, supply and demand shock shaking the whole economy, and the market's full, NFTs just got destroyed because they're a very risky asset which are still super early in their inception. So as we progress through 2023, the projects that have survived, which we're going to discuss today, there are plenty that have been quietly building and are looking extremely promising. And similarly, there's lots of exciting things, big businesses and small businesses building in the NFT space that are definitely worth discussing. And I think is going to, in hindsight, we'll look back at this and it will be a very similar replica to the dot-com bubble. And as you said, history has a funny way of repeating itself. So
absolutely. And I think, just to go off on a slight tangent, but like a lot of people realized that the opportunity was huge. A lot of people that actually did launch, especially some of the PFP projects, they started really well. They made an absolute fortune, didn't they? If you think about it, in a very short space of time. And the majority of them, not the real bad actors, not the ones that have scammed people and run off and you will never see them again, hopefully. But the ones that are actually, the majority, I think, that are actually doing this for the right reason and wanted to build a big business and a community and with one of these projects, just because the market is in this sort of dip at the moment, I don't believe they've gone away. And even though they've made millions, some of them tens of millions, they're not just going to stop. I weirdly had the thought you remember when Emma Raducanu won whatever she won, US Open or something, and she's 1 years old. And something made me think, and she won some millions of quid on that. And so she's set for life in a way. And if she wanted to, she could just stop playing tennis. Just go off on a completely different life's journey and just try something brand new. She'd be like, oh, I've done tennis now. Yeah, I'm only 20 years old or whatever. But of course she's not going to do that because she wants to play tennis. That's why she's as good as she is. And it's exactly the same with these people that started these NFT projects, or this is the way I think about it anyway. They're going to continue with the business that they've built. No one just wants to sit on a beach forever and do nothing or play golf every day. Going to continue to build and create new opportunities, and especially in this kind of a market where it's brand new to everyone, which means it's exciting, it's interesting. They are actually paving the way for other people. And so I just think, might be nowhere near it. It's not anywhere near where it was six months ago now, but it's definitely coming back.
100%. And yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. I think as nice as it would be to believe the majority of NFT projects had nice, wholesome founders, a lot of the data suggests to us at the moment that actually it was definitely the minority. Although I do believe there were a significant chunk of people with very good intentions that, as you said, came into significant amounts of funds and then perhaps lacked the depth of experience to manage their runway, particularly with factors like all of their funds being in ETH and then ETH crashing 80% and all of a sudden your runway overnight diminishing, right? And then having a tax bill to pay on that treasury that it was due at the price of ETH before it crashed. So now you're actually like completely fucked because it's like a whole new unknown. So lots of other factors like that definitely had an impact. But let's talk 2023 then. How is this year going to pan out in your perspective?
Yeah, tricky question, first of all. And I guess this is a perfect opportunity for us to remind people that anything that we say on this podcast is not financial advice. And because we are going to talk about a few specific projects as well, because I just think it's interesting for us to look back on this in 6 months, 12 months time and see how it did actually pan out. But I think in the main, largely, for me anyway, starting out anything new and a new year is essentially the same sort of, the way I look at it is, what you look for, you tend to find. I, perhaps with my sort of believing that the majority of NFT founders and projects, even back in the all-time high days, were positive or nice, friendly, conscientious people, would suggest that I'm leaning to positivity more so than negativity anyway. But I just think that's so important to do in this market. And I think that because you'll find both, like there will be scams, there will be projects that start and flop and fail, and it will be incredibly easy to lose money. It was incredibly easy to lose money on NFTs in Q2 2022 when $8.4 billion was spent on them. But at the same time, if you find the right project and you do the research correctly and you really sort of learn from people that have been in this space some time now, there's an equal number, or certainly enough, opportunities to do well. We've seen it recently. I think it was just the tail end of last year, but even Donald Trump's NFT collection, which sold for something like $4.5 million, they sold really quickly. They were, if you read all about it, people were saying they were terrible. They still had the watermark, like iStock watermark on the images. It's not really got any good press, but he sold them all. And for a time, they rose up in price. And they've all come right back down to earth now. But it's a good example. There was a equal amount of opportunity to make money on them, just as there was to lose money on them. It was all about the timing and that sort of thing. I believe that, it's going to be very similar to how it is now for at least 3, probably even the first 6 months, because the market's still going to be a smaller market where people are more cautious, less money coming into it, because of course there's so much other stuff going on in the global economy as well. People are having to save money and they're not able to risk as much and all that sort of stuff. So I think it stays very similar, certainly for the next 6 months, but that opportunities remain. And I think the main thing that we can do, and that any listeners that are really serious about thinking about still looking at NFTs as an investment opportunity, is take it seriously. Yeah, casualness leads to casualties. Like, just if you want to really do it, then take it seriously. It's your money and you should be careful with it. But the opportunities are there. And then I think also learning from last year, and I can speak from experience, don't be too slow to take any gains. And just celebrate the wins. And even if you remember, and hopefully if people have listened to the episodes that we've done, the few months after you sold your mutant ape, you were kicking yourself for feeling like you sold it too early, because you could have made a little bit more if you'd have held on. But especially in this market, just sell it and take the win.
I think this is a point worth dwelling on, because taking gains and cutting losses, particularly if you're new to active investing and perhaps before you've just put in money aside into maybe a stocks and shares ISA funds, or you bought some stocks to hold on for many years, or your pension, whatever, that's very passive. You do it once and you leave it. But in the world of NFTs, when you are looking to buy a project, hoping that it's going to go up in value with a view to then sell it in a relatively short-term range, anywhere from weeks to even 12 months, couple of years. With us in our Moonshot DAO, our goal is to acquire NFTs that we can look to sell for profit over the next 12 to 24 months, really, perhaps even slightly longer. But that's our time frame. It's not a 20, 30-year hold yet because of how early the technology is. But the act of, A, selling something for a profit, and B, actually perhaps selling something for a slight loss if, you're under good guise that it's going to go down even further, becomes a very emotional, driven thing. And I stand firm that taking gains and selling something for profit, you will learn this lesson the hard way. It's the sort of thing that you need to do, and everyone would advise you to set a mental level of when you'll be happy with your returns, whether that's when it's doubled in price, gone up 50% or whatever, or even if it's outlandish and if it's when it's 10x. But whatever mental level you set with yourself, try and get very clear on it, because we can both speak from experience, Matt. We learned this lesson the hard way when we've had things multiple times rise significantly higher in value to points where we were in, frankly, mind-numbing profits, which just felt, frankly, illegal at the time for how easy and quick it came around. But the horns of greed come out, as they do, and you think that, God, it's gone up this much, it's going to keep going. And then next thing you know, boom, it's retraced, the value's decreased, and all of that profit is now diminished. And you're sat there feeling like an idiot because only a few days ago did you have this incredibly valuable thing with tons of profit, and now it's all gone. And until you feel that emotional sting, I'm yet to meet someone who's actively traded that has nailed it first time. Because until you've gone through that learning curve and learn it the hard way, like some things in life you just have to learn the hard way, and I think that is one of them.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Weirdly, it makes me think of two examples, which are not like NFT related, but spent some time with my mum and stepdad over Christmas, and they were talking about what we got on the subject of premium bonds. And like premium bonds, it's one of those things you can't control anything. It's luck of the draw. I don't know too much about it, and I'm not involved. They were saying about some profits that they'd made or wins that they'd had on premium bonds, and small amounts of money, like a couple of £100, but it's still profit, and it's still that same feeling of like it's a win, and a win's a win. And I think, like having that feeling. And especially if you've traded something to get that result. That's my other example. Like Charlotte she's finally decided to try and sell some of the clothes that she doesn't wear, right? So yesterday she finally put a few things on Vinted or something. And she's an hour later, she's, oh my God, I've sold this dress. And something had sold for a tiny amount of money. But it was more money than it was to her sat in the cover not doing anything. And first of all, again, on that example, if you don't list it, if you don't get involved, if you don't get started, then you definitely won't sell it, and you definitely won't make any money. And there's opportunities here to do it, but you've got to do something. You've got to list the clothes, or you've got to buy the NFT in the first place. So you have to take action. Otherwise, you're just going to sit on the sidelines. And then, the positive feeling that my mum was talking about from making a few £100 on premium bonds, or Charlotte was talking about from making a few tens of pounds or even individual pounds on selling some clothes. It's still the same feeling. It's a win. A win's a win. And I think that in the market that we're in, and depending on how much time you can devote to this, I was reading on Twitter about one of the big collections, Cirrus, CRUS NFT is his Twitter handle, I think. Yes. And someone shared the other day like his trading strategy, or largely how he's done so well with NFTs. And it's fascinating. It's a thread.
He went from 0.6 ETH to 1,000 ETH.
Is that what it was? Yeah.
According to that thread, He started off with 0.6 Ethereum and currently is sat on 1,000 ETH of profit.
Wow. Yeah. And still a collection of NFTs, which is probably worth,
ridiculous amounts.
Millions. Yeah. And he did the same as Charlotte did. He got started. He just got involved, and I think that's so important. So I think especially now, like you say, we can talk from direct experience. If you get the opportunity to sell with a profit that you'd be happy with, then do it and start again. Trade. 100%. There's opportunities.
There certainly are. Let's get on the topic then of will NFTs recover? And before I ask for your thoughts on this, I just want to touch on what I think are a few important macroeconomic factors. And I know this is not a financial forecasting podcast, so excuse any jargon here, but I believe these are just a few key points, which I try and keep brief, that are very important to understand around whether or not the NFT market is going to come back, because it ain't just going to poof and it be back. There's a few wider things that are worth being clued up on. So first of all is let's just look at what's going on in the world right now. 3 big things stand out to me as kind of problems and why the market's down. Number 1 is being inflation and all this talk of recessions and all that jazz. And also the uncertainty of war, which has been trickling around through the back end of last year with, of course, tensions rising in the eastern parts of the world. And all 3 of these have a massive impact on all of the markets, in particular the stock markets. One thing that I think has caused a big part of the crash back end of this year, and what will need to recover first before the NFT market will recover, is all of the big tech stocks. If you look at any big tech stock, Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, whatever it might be in the US, they have all had mega crashes in the last few months, basically. And unfortunately, NFTs and indeed crypto are very correlated to whatever the stock market does at this stage. And so stock market down, NFT market down. And this is because, of course, NFTs are very they're very risky assets. And so people only start to play with risky assets when all of the non-risky assets are safe and doing well, because people typically will divert a small proportion of their portfolio to these risky assets, and that will increase as their overall portfolio grows, driven by rising over stock prices. Keeping an eye on those and seeing how they recover is crucial. Of course, we are in a bit of a recession at the moment, the dreaded R word that's being thrown around a lot of global economies off the back of COVID. And there's two things on the recession front that are going to be key triggers in what I believe will cause the markets to really explode, both the stock market and then obviously the NFT market as well. And these are, first off, any passing of regulation in regards to particularly Bitcoin and Ethereum, because you have a big pool of institutional money, of hedge fund managers and pension fund managers who all are ready, manage funds in the billions and some even in the trillions, who are ready to allocate 1% of their portfolio to Bitcoin, because actually Bitcoin since 2010 has increased by however many thousands of percent. I saw a great stat. If you put $1,000 in Bitcoin in 2010, I believe you'd have 1.4 million or something now, which is crazy. And so, of course, these funds want a little tiny piece of that. Not much, 1%, but 1% of 100 billion is a lot of money. And they can only do that once the right regulation is passed, because they are not going anywhere near any assets which would cause them to get in any trouble with the governments. And there's lots of talks of that. It's a boring topic for your average Joe, particularly like myself, to keep track of. But that is going to be a huge catalyst that all of a sudden will unlock the flow of billions and billions of dollars from these big hedge funds, pension funds, into crypto. And given the small size of crypto at the moment, comparatively, you're talking a 1 trillion market cap versus multi-trillions for these other funds. That's just going to cause a massive boom. So that's one thing to look out for. And then the other thing is just the general economy, right? Because what caused the massive rises in prices that we saw in Q2 was, in truth, there's heavy retail investment, right? The crypto market thus far has all been driven primarily by retail and a few private corporations. But the retail are the big drivers. And if we look back at what happened over the last couple of years, namely with the pandemic, COVID, whatever, everyone's locked down. All of a sudden, no one's going out. You can't spend money on holidays. You can't go to restaurants. You can't do this. You can't do that. And actually, stimulus checks are being sent out. You're getting all sorts of other support. And so people are actually sat on more disposable income than they ever have been before. And they got nowhere to spend it. And so all of a sudden, let's spend it online buying NFTs. And that caused a big boom. And so at the moment, sentiment around that is not great. Here in the UK, got energy prices, cost of living, obviously like recording record levels of inflation. People's willingness to be chucking a few $100s, a few £100 on this and that online is currently quite low. And it's going to take a shift in all of the external factors around that, and for the retail market to feel confident and to want to start throwing their money around in that pool again before we see the heights that we've seen before. So they're the two sort of triggers, both the regulation on the sort of big institutional side and also the retail sentiment, which will just be driven by largely the economic recovery, right? And so I think we've got a few slow months ahead of us, but I can definitely see it coming. And that's what I'm keeping my finger on the pulse, because when they both come into play, then boom, the market will begin to really take off. And that will be our signal then.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that I believe anyway, in my opinion, the best strategy, therefore, in the meantime, especially when it comes to, choosing NFT projects to follow and perhaps get involved with, is there are a collection now that have almost, it feels weird and it feels wrong to say, stood the test of time, because we're talking about such a short amount of time. But actually, to all others, they've been consistent. They've held up. They've dropped a bit, but they've not plunged to the 0.06 ETH levels that the majority of projects have, sunk down to. So I think it feels like we're very unlikely to see a return in the next 6 to 12 months of here's a new project with 10,000 tokens and the mint price is 0.0 something, and then they just suddenly take off. I just can't see it. And I think that would be, unless you know a lot about the project, the founders, the people, the community, that would feel very risky, and it's something that I'm certainly not looking at or interested in. But in that same period of 6 to 12 months' time during 2023, I think the projects that have held their own, and perhaps they've reduced by 20%, 30%, even 50% in some cases, but are still 10 plus ETH, still doing well, still going up and down every single sort of week or 2 weeks. It's a risky strategy to start trading and trying to get your timing right, but a lot of people do it. There is an opportunity there. I think though this is the time to look at those kind of projects that haven't crashed out altogether. That also, if you do your own research, like World of Women's a great example. We know that was, blimey, I can talk from very real personal experience. We paid flipping 14 or 16 ETH for our World of Women. The floor price is currently 1.7 or something like that. Wow. It is painful. So it's gone from, in ETH terms right now, let's say I've spent £14,000 for something that's worth 1,500 quid at this stage, or 1,500 quid. Like, it's maybe not quite that bad, $2,000, but it's painful. But the team behind World of Women, we know that they have Gaio Siri involved, Madonna's manager, and they've got investment from outside VC firms, all this sort of stuff. They're not going away. No way. And also, if you engage in the Discord and you see what's going on and the artists that they're supporting and the things that they're actually doing, even with their second series, the Galaxy, there's been a recent video produced and shared with a kind of glimpse as to what that's going to look like in the future with different worlds. And I think they're probably going into the metaverse with that. So there's a lot of effort, time, money being spent by that as a business that makes it still a project worth following and an opportunity for the future. And they're just one of a number of companies out there that have got big bags of cash, big investments, which they did on purpose. Gary Vee talked about this in relation to VFriends, the 50 million investment that he took from A16Z or whatever they were called, the capital investment firm. He did that on purpose to ride this kind of storm, so that he didn't have any concerns over running short of capital if the market really did tank, sort of thing. So they've acted very consciously, very strategically, so that they remain good investable projects, because they all want to be, to use your reference from earlier, they all want to be the Apple, the Amazon, and all the rest of the companies that went through that .com sort of bubble at the start of years and years ago, that many people think this is replicating.
Yeah, 100%. And having those smart business minds behind the projects that, as you said, have raised external funding and did convert their ETH into USD or whatever, so that they could weather this storm that they very much saw coming, are definitely the types of projects you want to be involved with, even though they may have temporarily steep dips in their floor price, as you've alluded to with your purchase of the World of Women. At least you're looking at some smart operators there. That is a good sign for future things to come. So there we have it. Well, speaking of NFTs recovering then, in the year 2023, not talking about beyond, so just in the next 12 months, to what extent do you see them recovering? It's as we both seem to be in agreement, we've got 3 to 6, maybe a little bit longer months of relative pain, but then perhaps a little upside toward the back end of the year. What sort of upside should people expect if our mystical forecast is true?
I think the good thing is we're starting from a very low point. So I think with a bit of luck and good fortune on our side, there's the opportunity to at least double some funds here, if not more. There really is. And the reality is that even some projects even now are releasing new series, new additions, additional sort of things. They're all building. And so it's difficult to put a number on it, but it's definitely an area where it's still worthy of some thought and attention for an investment opportunity. I think for example, one of the projects that I can't remember if we've talked about it much on the podcast before, but I remember sharing it within the Discord. There's a reminder there for anyone that's not joined our Discord that it is open to external people to join the Moonshot NFT Discord. But one project that, we shared some details of in there and actually, I'm going to share some more stuff tonight, is Memeland, which is by this company called 9gag. And so they've already got 2 tokens. They've got You, the Real MVP, which that was their initial token. They sold, I think, 420 of them, and the floor price on them is currently 32 ETH. So that's held up. That's over £30,000 worth per token. And then so with 420 of them, and then their second edition, sort of second series, was this thing called Potatoes, which I'm aware might sound a bit silly, but yeah, the Potatoes is a collection of 9,999. This was their PFP, so this was what they wanted people to use as their profile picture. 10,000 of them essentially, and the floor price on them is 2.7 ETH. Again, they haven't dropped right down to the lows. And then, so in the last quarter of 2022, they were starting to talk about their third step, this project called the Captains. And the Captains, at the time we're recording this, it mints tomorrow. And there's another 9,999 of them. And they link, it's part of a whole collection, so you'd have to really read up about it. But the MVP, Potatoes, and Captains are all part of this Memeland project. But they're minting tomorrow, and I'm very confident that, so to be able to mint one, you've either got to hold an MVP, a Potatoes, or get on the wait list. And I'm absolutely certain that they will mint out tomorrow very quickly. The mint price is 1.069 ETH. So it's £1,100 per one. And I'm certain they'll go like that. I'm really certain, because I know how big this community is. I know, there's a lot of excitement about this. And so that's over £11 million that they're going to make tomorrow. I'm certain. Even in this market, this year, right now, 5th of January, or 5th of, it might even be today, 4th or 5th of January, that's going to mint out. And that to me just shows, with the right project, the right people involved, the right community, the right sort of having done your own research to learn about that and somehow find a way of getting involved, if you want to risk £1,100, that's a good example of a real-time opportunity that's out there right now. And of course, like all new mint projects, people will mint them, then they won't reveal until, I don't know, a few weeks' time or whatever. So there'll be secondary sales. And some people will just want to offload them for a profit, a small profit. Some people might just want to offload them. Sometimes they sell them for less for whatever reason. They wanted to mint one, and then a week later they need the funds. And so there'll be some movement. It'll be one that's worth watching. And then post-reveal, some will be mega, I'm sure. I don't know enough about this but let's face it, that's how every project has gone down. So some will be very rare, I'm assuming, and therefore, I think some will do well. And that's just one example of which there will be many to follow, I think.
Yeah, 100%. So, as you said, lots of opportunities going on. I think as this year pans out, in terms of what sort of extent and percentage growth we would see in the NFT market, impossible to say, but if I had to take a stab at it, I think we'll see a pretty good growth in the total market cap overall. Given how much it shrank from 8 billion down to 3 billion, it could easily double and could easily triple towards the end of the year. I think that would be unlikely. I think a doubling would be up to a 6 billion market cap would not be too difficult given the size of it. I think that on the big projects, your CryptoPunks and your Bored Apes, etc., where the floor prices are still really high comparatively to other collections, that they will see obviously lower percentage gains, but that a lot of small projects could see ridiculous percentage gains. Many will be new projects, like you said, that mint out and immediately get a bit of demand. I think a lot, and some of the biggest gainers will be a lot of historical existing projects that are in your sort of top 20, top 30 projects that have crashed really hard right now, but have a solid community, have a solid roadmap, and have a solid case as to why they will grow in the future. And I think from my investor's point of view, I would be looking at these proven projects that are currently at massive discounts to buy into them, expecting that towards the back end of this year, if we do see an increase in the market cap, these will quite easily 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5x. We've seen it with some collections, random collections like Pudgy Penguins has been on a mad one recently. You could have gotten at that at around an ETH, and pretty sure that pumped up to 5 in literally the space of the last 2 weeks. That's a 5x right there. So percentage-wise, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities. Looking at the slightly discounted collections will be where I'll be looking to find them. But we'll see. As I said, there's a few big factors that will dictate the flow of money into the NFT market. And I don't think it would be reasonable to expect us to eclipse all the all-time highs from last year, but we'll see. We'll see.
No, and I think that the other thing is the Labs, Bored Ape Yacht Club, they're going through another next step on their project right now. The trial of Jimmy the Monkey there's videos on Twitter about that, which is quite fun. But there's a mint. So for anyone that holds Bored Ape Yacht Club or a Mutant and the Bored Kennel Club, and if you own both or all three, then done it in different tiers. But of course, now we're talking, you'd have to invest a lot of money to hold one of those in the first place at this stage, because they've still held their price, as you said, quite well. But so holders of those are being gifted this opportunity of whatever this next token is that they'll mint on January the 18th, I think. And it's been less than 12 months since they just airdropped their ape coin. So like the holders of apes and mutants and Kennel Club, if they've still got them, then they're about to receive another who knows what. And I think that I'm sure Moonbirds and Oddities were doing a similar thing at the start of this year in relation to being able to burn your Oddity for something. I've not read anything about that yet, but that's another sort of lower entry point to get an Oddity and then turn it into something. So like we know that they're all working behind the scenes, they're all building, they're all doing something. And yeah, those are a few projects that I think are worth keeping an eye on. I think it's also interesting that D-Gods and Utes are moving from Solana into Ethereum. So Frank is the guy who's behind D-Gods, or D-Gods, however you're supposed to say it. But that is another project that's done very well on Solana, was by far the biggest project on Solana. And they're moving across to Ethereum, which I don't know anything about it at all, but the fact that they're making such a significant change would absolutely suggest that there's something being built for the longer term and opportunities for the future. So and also having heard that guy on a podcast a few times, he's absolutely one to watch and get involved with somehow. So yeah, I agree. I don't think we're going to be sat here in 6 months' time saying we're back to the Q2 2022 levels, but I do think that some of these kind of top 5, top 10 projects in particular, they could double, triple very easily.
100%. So you mentioned, Moonbirds, Bored Ape Yacht Clubs, the Gods and Newts, Chromie Squiggles, I still think is going to be a true holy grail, and obviously disclaimer, because we'll never shill any random NFTs here. We'll always destroy it. The ones we're involved with, so I myself have got a Moonbird, so I'm very hyped for their growth there. Neither of us have got a D-Gods or a Utes. We, as the Moonshot DAO, hold a Squiggle, which we're very excited about. Admit One and the 9DCC. So, yeah, we don't have any exposure to those, but have seriously considered it with what they're building with their communities there. And I think the fashion side of NFTs, they're pioneering the way. And I think it's a real use case and segment of the NFT market that I think will explode in future. So that's definitely a good one to watch. And, of course, the other side from Yuga Labs, the Bored Apes, that is very exciting. And we don't currently have any exposure to that. But what they're building there, I think, will either be truly gargantuan and groundbreaking, or fall a little bit flat. So I think it's going to either absolutely be the hype ball and miracle it's being made out to be and explode, or it may be a little bit flat and be a little bit oversold. But time will tell, and certainly everything we're seeing so far is looking fairly promising. So
yeah, and I think it's very likely to be this year. That's the one point on that is surely that has to be, or something will happen in 2023 in relation to the other side. It has to. And I agree. No one knows whether it will be as good as they've suggested. But let's face it, they haven't really dropped the ball yet. And so I think,
going to be interesting to follow. So building on that, then let's look at some NFT trends. And what sort of things do you think we're going to see more of in 2023, or perhaps even less? Oh, I've got quite a few here, but I'll chuck it to you to start, Matt.
The main thing for me is more IRL events. That's clear already. We did our last episode on in-person events, and it's the other thing that makes me think that some of these projects could really jump forward this year. Proof Conference, which is Proof Collective, Moonbirds, Oddities, they're holding their first conference in May this year. And I think if they get more eyes on it, they increase the demand. I just think that helps to push the project forward. And then Nouns are a great example. They just did this huge event. Again, we talked about it last episode about the float they had at the Rose Parade Carnival on New Year's Day in California. And they got so much press around that. Like, they did a really good job. I hadn't realized that Seth Green was behind the company that was helping them create the float. And so he's obviously a huge kind of well-known personality from the sort of movie world and stuff, isn't he? They did so well with that, and it just increases the number of people, the awareness, really. And so that sort of stuff, I think, is bound to happen more in 2023, and with more awareness, more in-person events where people are actually then getting together and really seeing the benefit of the community that a lot of these projects have created, good things come from that. And when you do hold events, what tends to happen is, and I'm sure we'll see this in the Proof Conference in May and also VCon in May, they want to share new stuff at those events. They want to announce the next iteration of what they're doing. They're all building behind the scenes right now so that they've got something for us to get involved with and for the market to spend money on and do well from. And so I think even within the first 4 to 6 months of 2023, we're going to learn a lot about those kind of things. I think there'll be a World of Women conference or convention or something this year too. So yeah, main thing for me is in-person stuff, getting their communities together where they will drop new opportunities or alpha on what's coming next.
Absolutely. Agree with that. From my side, I see a few clear trends for next year. First off, I think is continued big platform adoption. And what do I mean by that? I look at big, particular social media platforms where people gather online collectively together anyway, how they adopt NFTs. What has quietly been ticking along in the back end of 2022 is Reddit. So Reddit, platform that has the same amount of users as Twitter, has blown up, and largely because of, well, not blown up because of, but they have released an NFT project and have incorporate NFTs as part of their platform, and it's absolutely blown up. The NFT side of it has, and it's really fascinating what they're doing there, rewarding their users. Something very interesting they've done at the back end of the year is, you know how Shopify every year do their annual roundup where you get your personalized breakdown of all of the things you listen to this year. It's how I found out I was in Machine Gun Kelly's top 1% of listeners, which I'm very pleased of. And Reddit did the same, but in an NFT form. So as a Reddit user, you could connect your wallet and it would create you your Reddit recap, which said you spent this much time on Reddit, you contributed this much, you commented on this many posts, you earned this much karma, which is their platform currency, which you get rewarded for contributing value to posts, and you could then mint your roundup as an NFT. So all the holders could then have that to either just keep as a nice memento or trade on the secondary market, which is pretty interesting. So they're doing all sorts of stuff like that. The other big platform, which I think is going to significantly continue to incorporate this, is Twitter. Of course, we've had the big takeover from big man Elon Musk in the last year as well, which has been the subject of a lot of controversy. Twitter has always been arguably the birthplace of NFTs to a degree. The original forum, the original mainstream platform where NFT people connected. And it's the first platform, as far as I'm aware, probably could be wrong on this, but they introduced the NFT profile picture feature where you could have a special hexagonal shape around your profile picture to signify that it is indeed an NFT that's connected to your wallet and you've got the verified ownership of it. And with Elon bringing that on board, I think he's got aspirations to basically turn Twitter into a bit of an everything app. We've already seen what he's doing in terms of changing some basic user functioning. You can now see, for example, how many impressions a tweet gets. They're going to be increasing the content parameters. So you'll be able to post long tweets, you'll be able to post a long form video. They're trying to incentivize lots of creators to get on the platform. And inevitably, I think they're going to explore and experiment with all sorts of different crypto payment options and also NFTs as well. That will probably go for a lot further than just having it as your profile picture. So seeing how they progress with that, I think will be big because, of course, they are a gateway to millions of users. And as more NFT functionality gets more normalized and also easier on these big platforms that people care about, that is going to be a gateway to bringing the retail interest in, which then again is going to result in retail dollars going into the market and the market going up. So I'm very excited to follow that. I think big brands are going to continue to develop and build. So I think in the last year and a half, we've had a lot of big brands dip their toes into NFT world and kind of fail in that they released a very shallow project. So a few that spring to mind, for example, was Pepsi did their one where you could get your little Pepsi bottle, and it's just, as far as I'm aware, it's just a Pepsi bottle, right? They just did a quick little collection, 10,000 profile pictures of a Pepsi bottle, and I don't know what it's worth now, but I'm assuming not that much.
Yeah.
And it was just them dipping the toes in, which on one front is good for them for getting involved, but what I think we're going to see more in the future are people thinking a bit more carefully about how they can really utilize NFTs for the brand, how they can unlock and tap into this pool of what ultimately will be highly valuable customers who are willing to invest in whatever it be, a collectible or an access token or whatever utility the NFT provides for that particular business, and actually have some much more complex and useful and well thought through initiatives built like that. And I've already seen, as you touched on, Donald Trump did his big collectible launch, which was funny, and I think we'll actually see a lot more controversial, if you can be him, if you can describe him as a controversial character, actually use NFTs as a mechanism to raise a lot of funds. Because if you are someone with very controversial opinions and actually you want to raise a whole bunch of money, but how are you going to do that through regular means? Yeah. If you are someone like Donald Trump and actually you've got a big audience and you can launch an NFT on the blockchain because it's all decentralized, you can then sell all of your collectibles to your raving fans and raise millions and millions of dollars in like the blink of an eye. And I think that won't be the first time we see that. But in particular, more big companies like the likes of Manchester United, who in the last few weeks have launched their fan collection, which I've not done too much research into, but I know it was launched on the Tezos blockchain, and it's become the largest collection ever with 900,000 individual owners, which is mental. 900,000.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Hopefully that's owners and not just NFTs, and I've hopefully not just told a massive lie, but I believe that is to be correct. So I think we'll see a lot more of that over this next year. Then the final thing I was just going to mention was a little bit of controversy that I can see brewing over this next year, and that is with Apple and how NFTs link to mobile devices. Because, of course, anyone who has not been living under a rock has seen how in the developed world, the use of mobile has grown exponentially over the last 10 years and probably continues to do so to a degree. And as a result, Apple have grown and developed a huge part of their business known as the App Store, where they obviously have a monopoly in many countries on devices use in terms of the iPhone. And iPhone is supplied by... The value of the iPhone largely is derived from all the apps and things you can do on it, which come from the App Store. And Apple take a 30% cut, I believe, of any transaction that takes place in any apps from the Apple App Store. And as a result, last year, the App Store generated $85 billion in revenue for Apple. And because of the nature of the business, it's very high margin, 80% roughly, which means that's a $68 billion profit part of the business, which is all in the App Store. Now, NFTs pose a little bit of a threat to some of this money. In particular, if we look at it from a lens of, okay, NFT technology means we have our wallet which holds our NFTs. We can then connect our wallet to various apps and unlock access or functionality to certain things in those apps based on the contents of my wallet. So a really easy example to understand here is if we were playing a game. And let's say we were playing a game, and it's all about war and tanks, right? And the name of the game was you drive around in your tank. And so you could then buy on NFT marketplaces more powerful tanks, super rare tanks, a titanium-plated tank with an extra big gun at the front, and put that in your wallet. And then when you connect your wallet to the game on your desktop or indeed on your phone, you now have access to this epic new tank which you have bought on the secondary marketplace. And, of course, the fact that I've actually now able to go and do that on a secondary marketplace and not just in an app means I bypass any transaction that would mean some money going into Apple's pocket. And, of course, Apple likely have a bit of a problem with this, as it is likely to represent and accumulate to quite a significant sum. So I can foresee there being a little bit of development, a little bit of chat around how this is going to plan out. I can imagine Apple may lead to a bit of strong arming. There's also been a few posts from Coinbase online after the Coinbase wallet, which launched NFT functionality, has had, I think, being removed, or they're having troubles on the App Store. So they've opened up a dialogue to try and solve it with Apple. And Apple have already put forward some proposals asking for percentages of fees from NFTs and all this sort of stuff. So anyway, without going into the intricacies, we see a little bit of drama there that will unfold in front of our eyes over the next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've read a little bit about it, not too much, but they have a lot of power in that situation.
Exactly. They are the big boys. So there we are.
Quite.
So to round us off then, Matt, let's make a few little predictions so we can look back on ourselves and think, wow, what a pair of geniuses those two were. Oh, goodness me, what a pair of absolute buffoons. Only time will tell, but we can put ourselves to the line here. And let's just talk about NFTs that we know well. We're not going to go through loads. We'll go through 6 or so. Starting with VeeFriends, Matt. Starting with VeeFriends Series 1. What is the price now? And what is your price prediction for the end of 2023?
The last time I checked, which was only yesterday, price now is 5.6. That's a floor price for a VeeFriends VF1. That's one of the originals. And I think they're going to have a good year. I think in 12 months' time, we see a floor price of above 10 ETH.
Nice. I'm going to beat that. I'm going to say 11.5.
Wow.
Not hugely above, but I'm feeling confident. And Gary continues to make some strides in the right directions. That being said, then the VeeFriends 2, which I believe currently the floor price there is 0.27. What is your prediction?
Yeah, trickier one because there are so many more of them and so many different types and above 1.
Above 1
is my prediction.
I'm going to actually go under you here and say 0.8. I would be surprised if they were all over 1. Given the I think you might win that one, but we'll see. Right, next one then, the Big Daddy, the one that you formerly used to own, the Bored Ape Yacht Club. So this is currently at 80 ETH. What's it going to be at the end of 23, Matt?
Yeah, they're going to continue to do very well. I'd be very surprised if they're under 100 from the end of next year. End of this year. So yeah, 12 months time, 100 ETH minimum. Could be way more.
Yeah, I share a similar thought with you there. I'm going to go brash, 110. Their little cousins then, the mutant apes, currently 17.39 ETH. End of year they're going to be?
I've only gone 20 because I would be surprised if these additional drops keep coming. And that seems to be the benefit of the mutant. It's a lower entry point, and then you benefit as a holder. I mean, they might, who knows, but I've only gone 20.
Yeah, I'm going to up you there. I'm going to go 25 because I think that the mutants are going to continue to develop a bit of attention. And I think if things go to plan with the other side and the mutants are an involved part of it, I think they're going to look very cool in the other side and thus become a little bit desirable, particularly for lots of gamers in the sort of community that will be spending a lot of time in the other side. So that is why they're. Moving on then to the mighty Moonbird. So I'm a proud holder of a sweet little Moonbird. Currently, floor price is 7.66. What do you think it'll be at the end of the year?
I think due to the fact that they've got their conference, they are definitely working on other things. 15 ETH minimum in 12 months' time.
Nice. Love it. I'm going to go really bold here. I'm going to say that they're going to go back up to the heights of 25, I believe. I back the Moonbirds. I have a lot of confidence in Kevin Rose, what they're building over at Proof, and hopefully they're going to deliver on lots of the exciting things in their roadmap this year. None more so than obviously the big event and also the Moonbirds Mythics that have been released. And they have collaborations with a lot of cool artists. So recently they released a not limited edition, but a rare X copy, who's a very big individual NFT artist based in London, I believe, who is renowned for unique one-of-one pieces that fetch very high amounts, that are very highly revered within the big art collectors of the NFT community. And you can now change your Moonbird to have an X copy background, which is pretty cool. And so I think they'll have some interesting things up their sleeve. And if they continue with these cool partnerships, hopefully that will continue to increase. So I'm going for 25, nice and bold.
Love it. I hope for your sake they do. Absolutely.
The Proof Collective then, so the mother token of the Moonbirds community, the actual membership card, currently at 37 ETH. What do you think it'll be at the end of the year?
Yeah, I'm predicting over 50 again, which I could be a little bit low on that. They could be more closer to 80, but I'm saying definitely over 50, just because there's so few of them. There's only the initial 1,000, and I think that I would like to see them get some pretty special treatment at this conference, and I think that will increase the people's desire to be one of those original holders. So yeah, 50 minimum, could be closer to 80.
Yeah, like that. I'm going to up that ever so slightly. I'm going to go to 60 is what I'm going to go for proof for all the same reasons. Last but then by no means least, as NFT project that holds a special place in our hearts and one that we hold as part of the Moonshot DAO. But the Chromie Squiggles, highly revered, currently 17.3 ETH floor. What do you think it'll be by the end of the year?
Yeah, which is crazy, really, because only a couple of months ago it was down at, 7, 8, 9, something like that. It was certainly less than 10. The fact that it's really holding so strong currently in this market, I've said a minimum of 25, but I actually think in 12 months' time, people could have realized the significance of the Chromie Squiggle, and it could be closer to 35, 40. I'm going to go 30 ETH minimum in 12 months' time.
30 ETH minimum. Love it. I am going to match, but go slightly above. I'm going to go 35. 35 seems mental. Thought here, because I think they absolutely deserve to be very high for all the reasons you've outlined. I think they're historical. I think the big collectors love them. I think they'll continue to grow as more people come into NFTs, and they now have a historical aspect to them. So yeah, you know what? Let's go 35. We're going for it. Big guns. So there we have it, written in stone.
12 months time now.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. But there we are, written in stone and shared in the public domain, our predictions for all those top projects. Now let's see which of them come true. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. Any closing remarks before we end the show?
No, not really. Only one reminder that if any of this is piquing your interest and you are looking to do some research and perhaps get involved in the exciting opportunity-filled world of NFT investing, then join the Discord and ask some questions or share some thoughts. The best way of learning about this is doing it together. And if you want to communicate about it, let's do that, because I think start of a new year, people are open to new ideas. They haven't all joined a gym for the 17th time to only last for the next few weeks or whatever. It's a good time to consider new things, and perhaps one of those new things might be NFT investing. If it is, the Moonshot DAO, Moonshot NFT Podcast group of us will be very keen to help you on your journey or get started. Yeah, that's my one parting message for this week. What about you?
Lovely stuff. No, echo that message. Look forward to welcoming any of you listeners into the Moonshot DAO Discord. It'll be great to converse. And yeah, look, I am hyped. I'm primed and ready for an excellent year. I think it's going to be a year full of opportunities and lots of developments in what is promising to be a very explosive and exciting space. So, as always, Matt, always a pleasure. Really enjoy these discussions. Hope you have a wonderful evening. And to all of our lovely watchers, thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And that's all from us for now. So remember, as always, to the moon.